Good morning everyone and welcome back to the summer term. I'm especially excited for this term. Longer hours of daylight, the sun is shining, well, mostly, and that makes everything feel that little bit better. Not only that, but it is the term where you see your hard work over the year culminate in the final end of year assessments, with Year 11 taking their GCSEs and preparing for their next steps too. One way of helping to support you to be your best ex is receiving and responding to feedback. The focus of the half term for teachers is effective feedback, and so today we wanted to share with you why feedback is so important and some myths surrounding it too. Now before I begin, to add an extra bit of incentive to help aid your attention over the next few slides, there will of course be a quick quiz. And now is a great time to say well done to 9 EKS, who were the winners of the quiz during the last focus week. Could it be your tutor group this time? Now we are going to start with a common myth around feedback. We don't get feedback during the cycle, only after our assessments. Now this isn't entirely correct. Feedback is most certainly given in its most obvious form, as our whole Super Teaching Week is based around celebrating your strengths as well as focusing on areas of improvement. However, feedback is actually just part of the teaching process over the whole cycle. Now, before providing feedback, teachers need to check your understanding and make an assessment of what you know. Now, there are two words which teachers use. These are formative and summative. You don't need to know those, but it helps explain kind of the next little bit of the slide. Now, summative assessment is what students mostly think about as a point at which they receive feedback. Those end of cycle tests teachers mark and they give feedback. That's summative. But students often don't recognise the formative assessment that teachers use frequently throughout the cycle to provide on-the-spot feedback to inform future lessons. The analogy of the chef and the soup can help understand this further. Now, as the chef is preparing a soup, or any food for that matter, they're tasting it at regular intervals and using that feedback they receive from the tasting to make tiny amendments. Maybe a little bit more salt might be needed, maybe a little bit more cream perhaps. All the while making improvements and adjustments to make their soup even better. Teachers are doing the same throughout the cycle, checking how much you're understanding, giving you little targets for improvement, making adjustments, and over time these help you when it comes to those summative assessments so that teachers can provide you with even more further targeted feedback. Now, when providing feedback, it's useful to think of the 3 M's. First one, meaningful. Now this varies depending on your year group and subject, but receiving specific feedback on how to write a 6-mark response in geography and bugging the question might be more appropriate for exam groups compared to potentially a year 7 class. It has to be manageable, and this is for teachers. We're not going to sit and write a paragraph per student because it'd be very time consuming. But as a student, it would also feel really overwhelming to receive all of that feedback and make you feel like you don't know where to begin and like you have a big mountain to climb. 2 to 3 targets or areas of focus would help make it more manageable and make it feel like you can achieve it. And finally, motivational. By having regular, bite-sized, focused feedback, this motivates you to see that there can be real success, and by being better than you were yesterday, you are moving in the right direction. So how does feedback fit with the model of how we learn? Well, firstly, your teachers create the right environment to be able to provide feedback. We'll go into more detail on the how shortly. Now, your working memory is the site of awareness and thinking, and if your attention is focused on specific areas you need to improve, it helps you manage the load in your brain. It means it is more manageable for your brain to deal with the information, and it helps this new information build on top of what you already know about the topic. Feedback helps to improve your long-term memory by reinforcing the information you've learned, and it helps you to remember it better. This increases the chances of you being able to remember that information later on, which is especially useful for those assessments at the end of each cycle. Doing this on repeat means that when you get to year 11 and take your GCSEs, you'll be in the best possible position to be your best ex. So by now, the why around why feedback is so important should be clear. You can understand your current development and how best to address gaps in your knowledge in order to succeed. Now, this is done by receiving regular opportunities to act on high quality feedback, with time given to act on the feedback to make those improvements. Asking questions helps teachers check your understanding. After all, we're not mind readers. But what this looks like in practice varies from lesson to lesson and subject to subject. And we'll take a look at a few of these strategies now. So what could this look like in my lesson? Well, about to appear on screen are a list of strategies which some of you may be familiar with. This is by no means a complete list, and each of your teachers who are experts in their own subject areas may be able to come up with even more ways. It could be redrafting a piece of work, live marking using codes defined by the teacher, finding and fixing particular mistakes, could be some shadow questions in maths. It might even be just some verbal feedback on a specific area of work targeted to your individual needs. It could look like mini whiteboards so that teachers are gathering that feedback and responding to it on the spot. It might just be the teacher circulating and gathering information on the whole class so that they can address a whole class area of improvement. And there are so many more. But what this might look like from subject to subject may vary. But as I said, your teachers are the experts in their areas. Now, our focus on feedback is very much linked to our focus on student attributes this week. When you learn how to use feedback to improve, you become more resilient because you're not discouraged by mistakes or setbacks. Instead, you use them as an opportunity to learn and to grow. You are able to adapt in many areas of your school life so that you can be really proud of what you're achieving. By becoming more open to receiving feedback, it helps you to become more self-aware, and this in turn helps you to become more curious and reflect on your progress so far before a teacher even perhaps gives you their expert feedback. By being that little bit more curious, it helps you to become ambitious and really push yourself to knowing that a little bit more or moving up a grade in a particular subject. And the final attribute around kindness for me is twofold. Kindness to each other when receiving feedback. No one wants to be laughed at because they got something wrong. That is simply not being your best ex. But also showing kindness to yourself. Don't feel down if you receive feedback which was less than you wanted. Use it and think to yourself, it's okay, I'm going to use this feedback to be even better in the future. So now is the time to tell how closely you were all following. Now I'm going to give you 5 quick questions to answer, and your tutor will be able to submit your score to be in with a chance of winning a prize. Good luck, and I hope to see you all being your best ex this term.